I'll get chat open. Hey.
All right.
There are people in the chat. Cool. All right. So, welcome everyone to the EU final of the Coin Concede Listener League. My name is Midgame, or Jack. I am the admin of the tournament.
My name is Orion, otherwise known as RatherSallad on Twitter and other places around the interwebs. And we are gearing up for very exciting finals with Rebobson playing the player who will be known as ASDF.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know Orion, because he's not part of all the Discords and everything, this is my partner for the So You Think You Can Cast competition. We ended up going second, which is pretty cool. For the future games tonight, we're also going to be joined by Wicked Good from Off Curve. So yeah, these two players have met twice already in the bracket, with Rebobson coming off victorious both times. One 3-0, one 3-1. Their decks for the final, ASDF brought Control Mage, Control Priest, Spell Hunter, and Quest Warrior, has had his Hunter banned, and Rebobson brought Spiteful Druid, Miracoli Rogue, Shutterwock Shaman, and Quest Warrior with the Shutterwock Shaman banned. Cool.
So,
all right.
The players are ready.
Let's get
We're
them
good to
going
get down
in.
to the action. So safe to say there's a bit of a favourite heading into this match.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely the case. Even just looking at their ranks in normal play, you can tell that one of them has probably played a fair bit more recently. But, you know, I'm always down to root for an underdog.
Yeah, look, I love an underdog story as well. So I'm going to be cheering on ASDF through this game. But we'll see how the cards shake out.
All right, let's spectate them both, get a look at their hands. Of course, this is open deck list, so we do know all of the cards that both of them are playing. Looks like it is the Miracle Rogue against the Control Mage. Probably favoured for the Miracle Rogue here, I would say.
Yeah, that does seem likely. The Control Mage is going to need to try to both maintain control of the board while also...
both have a pretty good hand there.
Yeah, it's a good opener.
Interesting that he threw away the Frostless Jaina. I would have been... Oh, he's got it back anyway. But I would have been inclined to keep it there because it does seem the only way that you're going to win this matchup is just by a million water elementals.
Yeah, I think the main challenge for the Control Mage in this matchup is that you both want to maintain control of the board, make sure that the Rogue isn't getting too much pressure on you, but also try to apply some amount of pressure yourself, because if you give them to the late game, then they kind of start to assemble a couple of pieces that can mean your demise very, very quickly. So I actually don't mind throwing back the Frostless Jaina there to try to get a couple of more proactive plays.
No, another surprising thing for me was the dropping of the Stonehill Defender. I think that that's just a nice card to get a little bit of something on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a good tempo play on turn 3 and then going into the rest of the game.
Although having the polymorph for the potential Edwin or Henchclan Thug does seem like a pretty good pickup. So, you know, pros and cons.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rebobson starting off with a pretty clean curve. Firefly into Dagger Up, kill the 2-drop out of ASDF. ASDF looking at a pretty awkward turn 3. Doesn't really have anything good to play on curve. Probably looks like just maybe pinging face here and pass. I don't really want to run out the Arcane Artificer on to try to save that to pair it up with a spell to get some armor game going back, especially in a matchup where life is as important as it is against Miracle Rogue.
Henchclan Thug here is pretty good pick, going up to a 4/4, but of course we do have the answer. It'd be interesting to see here whether he decides to go for the Doomsayer instead, which would mean that he takes a little bit more damage, but does preserve that polymorph for further turns.
Yeah, it is an interesting trade-off here, because also the Doomsayer, of course, isn't a confirmed clear.
And we can see in his hand that he has things like Sap and Abyss, which will allow him to get rid of it.
Yeah, I think the play from Rebobson here is probably likely going to be Sap the Doomsayer, and then follow up with the Dagger to
make it a 5/4
again.
So
things are not going well for Rebobson here. And not so for Rebobson, for ASDF here. I anticipate him probably burning the polymorph next turn to take care of the Henchclan Thug, because otherwise that's just going to continue to grow out of hand.
Yeah, I would say that's likely. Seeing as he picked up the second Artificer, I would have quite liked to see that played as well, because gaining 4 HP there, putting a 2/1 on board, it means that it takes up the attack of the sheep and the weapon, which is pretty good.
It does make sense. It is also quite possible that he's waiting to play double Artificer into, say, a Meteor or a Flame Strike, which is going to gain him that 12 or 14 armor and then potentially keep a couple of bodies on board to try to contest the follow-up play.
Rebobson has the ability here to go for a giant Edwin with something like Blood Mage, Flame, Elemental, Coin Edwin, which it looks like he might be doing, which I don't mind at all. Of course, it is directly countered by the Meteor, which comes online next turn.
Yeah, we'll see if Rebobson remembers to play around it and do the positioning of it right.
Oh, he might not be going for it here.
No, it looks like he's just running out the Thalanos to try to maybe cycle it a little bit further into his deck, find some key cards.
Doomsday looks quite nice here for ASDF.
Yeah, good little tempo play. Leaves a clear board going into turn 7 to potentially drop the Baron Geddon.
The interesting thing with Doomsday here, and quite often with Doomsday, is that you actually play it to counter what you think they're going to play the turn after.
Yeah.
Because here, obviously, Rebobson would love to play something like the Gadget Zen Auctioneer here, but is forced to Vilespine instead, which I'm not sure I like. It does keep him with a lot of tempo, but then it misses out on that for things like, is that a Toki?
I believe
it is a Toki. This is going to get wild, quite literally.
Definitely be interesting to see what comes up of that. All right, Raven Familiar from ASDF pulls a Meteor. Always going to be
pretty much guaranteed to get a draw there. Although a lot of pros recently have been swapping out the Raven Familiars for Novice Engineers because they think that the +1/+1 is not quite as relevant as the guaranteed card draw. Obviously not a thing in this matchup, but it is something to just kind of consider.
Yeah,
a little bit
sense.
interesting.
All right, Gadget Zen Auctioneer.
Obviously, with Coin and Prep, this is going to be a bit of a crazy turn.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he hasn't had a chance to play either of the Thaldori Striders yet, which he would have loved to have played before he goes through with his Gadget Zen play, so he can get a bunch of free 4/4s out.
Yeah, absolutely. But just cycling through his deck, getting a bunch of card advantage, popping a Cold Blood down on the Vilespine Slayer, putting a bunch of pressure onto ASDF's face.
ASDF now with Lethal on board has to do something to go against it. I think that the Artificer Flame Strike here looks pretty tasty.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't really want to do something like Blizzard here because you do want to kill the Gadget Zen Auctioneer.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to get that Gadget Zen off the table. If Rebobson manages to go into the next turn with a Gadget Zen on table and an Edwin in hand, that's going to be very bad. So, correct call of the Artificer plus Flame Strike there to clear the board.
And there's the Thaldori Strider. I would expect to see that come down straight away with an SI to kill off the Artificer there. Really nice turn using the most of that coming. Oh, Backstab coming down.
Probably means that he's trying to follow this up with
going with an Edwin. Yeah. Once again, we do see that Meteor in hand, which is going to be quite nice. And
yeah, correct positioning from Rebobson there, putting the most valuable minions towards the outside.
There is a chance that something like Blizzard comes down here to just delay it, set up for a better Meteor next turn. That does look quite nice.
I would say Blizzard here looks like a very potential play. Clears off the Firefly, puts the Van Cleef and the Thaldori Strider next to each other so that Rebobson doesn't reposition. And that is going to be the play that ASDF is going to go for. Yeah, so if Rebobson doesn't reposition by putting a minion in front, or between, rather, those two minions, then that's going to lead to a really clean clear for ASDF on the next turn. Obviously, if Rebobson played around Meteor in the previous turns, there's not a lot of reason to suspect that he won't do it now.
Yeah, it's one of those things which, since Journey to Un'Goro has come fairly natural when you're playing against Mage, just to always know that you've got to split up those big minions.
Yeah, absolutely. The presence of cards like that in Hearthstone that require you to consider where on the board you place your minions, I think are just really great additions to the game because they allow more experienced players to find those little edges and really think about everything that they're doing.
Absolutely. And obviously more of them being created as we go with things like Crushing Walls, the new Hunter spell, stuff like that.
Absolutely. So yeah, the Meteor is going to come down there for ASDF.
You have to say,
pretty nice clear.
It looks like ASDF is really starting to stabilize here.
Yeah.
That pickup of Leroy is obviously fairly significant. It does give him a fair bit of burst, and if Rebobson can pick up something like the Cold Blood, then that gives him a fair bit of potential out of hand. He has those spiders coming out. Another
absolutely. Eviscerate off the top, off the Gadget Zen draw is going to put a little bit of pressure. Ooh, and then another Thaldori Strider Spider trigger does leave Robson with a fair amount of pressure. ASDF is probably going to have to burn, say, another Meteor here to try to clear away that Gadget Zen Auctioneer. If you can just find an opportunity to stick Jaina.
And then he's got the heal from Baron Geddon, which will almost just do a Reno effect, healing up to the full. This is interesting to me. I don't think that I would play Stonehill here because I just don't think that it's enough. You're still letting 9 damage go through to face.
No, that is quite likely. I mean, I suspect that ASDF is going to look to follow it up with a Meteor.
The problem is he can't Meteor ping, and all of the significant minions on Rebobson's board have 4 health.
That's true.
So
I think the Meteor
killing
needs to go at the Gadget Day and Auctioneer regardless. That's not a card that you can really allow to just exist on the board. So the Spiders are going to have to live this turn regardless, in which case it makes sense to run out the Defender first so that you have more information just going into the choice that you're already going to make. So that is the play that ASDF goes for. So 2 Spiders on board, 2 a Stonehill Defender.
So Rebobson does have 10 damage from hand with the Leroy. Oh no, here we go. That is 14 damage. That is lethal. That is game 1 going to Rebobson. That's the power of Miracle Rogue.
Absolutely. Big bursts out of nowhere. Pretty valiant effort by ASDF. Did look like he was maybe able to stabilize there for a couple of turns, but Rebobson, knowing how the matchup works, continually maintaining the pressure. I think a real key turning point in that match was the choice of Vilespine the Doomsayer rather than just let a 1-1 die. Rebobson clearly understands how important it is to just keep applying that pressure and just not give the Control Mage any chance to let up. Because as we saw, any opportunity that ASDF had to land that Frostless Jaina, and he probably could have stabilized and maybe even won that game.
Yeah, I agree. And it really does show the power of Faldori Strider. It on itself almost completely makes this deck work. Because getting all those 4/4s out of the deck is just
no
crazy.
mana cost either is absolutely a huge number player. All right, so Warrior it seems for game 2 we have the Quest Warrior Mirror match.
This will be long.
This is going to be a long game. Yeah, strap in, guys. Maybe go make yourself a cup of coffee or something because we're going to be here for a while. Now, key differences between the 2 decks. It seems like ASDF is running a Scourgelord Garrosh, where Rebobson is not. That is probably going to help favor ASDF a little bit by having the additional weapons try to keep some of the board clear.
The interesting thing that I find with running Scourgelord Garrosh is it really puts into question your timing of everything because you don't want to run it out after you've played Sulfuras.
Correct.
So then it potentially delays your use of Sulfuras because obviously playing that not only changes your hero power, but also will get rid of the weapon that you're probably playing it for more than the hero power. The Whirlwind hero power from Scourgelord Garrosh is not really that significant. That's not the reason that you play the card. Obviously, we see Harrison Jones in hand for Rebobson. Definitely going to find a target this game. Plenty of weapons in the Warrior deck. The Cornered Sentries here are interesting, being cards that have been specifically picked out since Token Druid has become so significant in the meta, and also Quest Druid, because it does mess up the witching hours.
Warpath out of, as the draw off the top for ASDF there, could spell a pretty nice sequence of plays here. I might be able to run a couple of Raptors into the Sentries and then start trying to clear away the board.
I think instead he's just going to go for the Saronite there, which it still gets him a pretty significant board. He's getting some draws off the Acolyte. He's going to be happy with that, obviously.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of an awkward turn here for Rebobson because he can't quite Warpath for 3 to clear ASDF's board.
Yeah,
he can't Militia for 2, which obviously you don't really want a Militia for 1.
Yeah, and
so he just ends up hero power passing.
Yeah, you can see the value of patience here in this matchup with Rebobson not wanting to try to miss an opportunity to echo the Phantom Militia and instead just opting to just armor up and pass, knowing, look, I can regain the board tempo at a later date. Armor also being a very valuable resource in this game.
Yeah.
Every turn you get to press that button and just kind of tank up a little bit more.
Puts you a little bit further away from dying from those rag shots that come once you've completed the quest.
Yeah,
very nice turn there for ASDF, being able to clear the board, draw some cards, gain some armor, all good stuff.
Yeah.
Phantom Militia coming down here for 2. As I was mentioning earlier, you really don't want to play that for anything less than 2. That's the reason that you play it, so that you can get the multiple ticks off on the quest.
Yeah, absolutely. ASDF going to follow up with his own Phantom Militia here, testing the board. There's 2 Saronite Chain Gangs, probably going to run into one of the other Phantom Militias, trading it off.
I would say so, yeah. So we've got 4 versus 3, so pretty close on that quest tick, but we do notice from seeing Rebobson's hand, as compared to the hand of ASDF, there's a lot more taunts in there. He's going to be able to tick over a lot quicker. We're probably going to see the rag shots come out as he jumps up to 6 ticks on the quest. That is very significant.
Absolutely. So the 2 Phantom Sentries here, Phantom Militia is probably just going to run into...
I wouldn't be shocked to see a coin Garrosh here, because it does completely clear the board with the weapon. Obviously not going for that play. Going for the Prydrake instead. That is a good call. Completely clearing the board. I'm not sure which one I would have went for there. I think it is possible that Scourgelord Garrosh would have been more significant, but perhaps ASDF just values the armor that he can get from the standard warrior hero power a little bit more.
That is entirely possible, yes. All right.
Did see the hover over Sulfuras here. We're going to see the rag shots starting to come out, going very aggressive from Rebobson, which I think is definitely the correct play here. Getting the hit that he wants, killing that Primordial Drake. Going to be very happy with that.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so I'm going to see how ASDF responds to that. Going to start off by slamming.
Getting some draw. He just really wants to draw a few more taunts here.
Yeah, now that the...
there's some bad picks.
Yeah, you really just wanted something that is relatively cheap but high impact.
I think he's probably going to go for Tarlord here because Mastodon and Ozuruk don't look like good picks.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, once your opponent starts getting off the die insect shots, you really just want to try to clear up the board, to clog up the board rather, so that those errant shots have a likelihood of hitting something other than your face or a valuable minion.
Yes. It'll be interesting to see here whether Rebobson chooses to kill off one of the minions with the weapon, probably the Stone Heal, and then shoot, or whether he just shoots to begin with. I would say that it's probably correct to do the weapon hit first, and yes, he's going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Possible trade into an execute here if you really wanted to try to get the damage for face, but once again, Rebobson, knowing the value of patience, knowing that he's got the power, the hero power on his side, and then he could afford to just sit back. And even if it's not hitting face, it's at least clearing some minions for free and getting some pretty decent value off it.
He does also know that he does have the Harrison in hand, so the weapon that comes down, he's got an automatic clear for that. So that probably puts him ahead in terms of the actual damage output that ASDF has. Not only is he already shooting now, he's already ahead on life. He's got that weapon destruction. He's got some armor gain in the Armorer. He's got single target removal with Warpath Execute. He's got more taunts to clog up the board with the Tar Creeper. It feels like he's a long way ahead here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Drywisker Armorer off the top for Rebobson.
I wouldn't be shocked to see trade Execute here, and then probably chuck down the Tar Creeper with a Rag Shot. Really start getting some face damage happening, putting the clock on ASDF.
Yeah, these are pretty much the kind of turns that Rebobson wants to have at this stage of the game. Maintain pressure on the board, maintain hero shots, hero power shots, keeping that damage to face going.
And this is where I start to question, as I did at the start, that inclusion of Scourgelord Garrosh.
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, yeah, ASDF
because
is really between a rock and a hard place. He kind of doesn't want to play the Garrosh. Kind of wants to get the Sulfuras going.
Really, like, the only spot that he had to play it was that turn where he played Primordial Drake. He's going to play it here, which I just don't like at all.
Yeah, it does enable him to start to try to clear the board. But as we're going to see, I think that Harrison Jones is going to come down and make handy work of the weapon. And then ASDF is not going to be left with much.
Yep, we can see him already hovering over that Harrison. Good inclusion in the deck. Does ASDF run Harrison? That is a good question.
I don't believe so. I think that might be the main difference between their two decks, with ASDF opting for
the Scourgelord
instead of the Harrison. Looks like this game's pretty much over for ASDF. All Rebobson really needs to do is
Drywisker Armorer is a good...
All right, I stand corrected. This might give a little bit of reprise.
Wouldn't be surprised to see a hero power here, which would once again just delay that Sulfuras a little bit longer. But at this point, actually playing that Sulfuras becomes a bit questionable because he's got to start going a little bit on the defensive almost, it feels, because he's so far behind here. Now going on the offensive and grabbing something like the Rag hero power, it's a little bit questionable how much good that does him.
Yeah.
But that being said, it doesn't look good. It looks dire, if you pardon the pun.
Yeah, Rebobson here going to have a number of options. Have a very easy turn for him. Hero Power is definitely going to be somewhere in the mix by deploying either the Direhorn Hatchling or the Saronite Chain Gang, plus the Blood Razor, as it looks like the play might well be. Potentially following up with a Whirlwind to clear, so he knows that he can guarantee the shot to the face.
Fairly likely.
Yeah, makes sense.
Development here isn't as important as just getting the damage to face, because if he gets one more shot off now, that's GG.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without any armor coming from ASDF.
Yeah, so now ASDF has to deploy enough minions that both cannot be cleared by Rebobson, and also gives him a reason.
Good pickup.
Yeah, Saronite definitely will do some work there. But as we can see from Rebobson, he does have the Warpaths in hand to be able to clear pretty much anything that ASDF is going to be able to deploy. So with the Saronite coming down, it looks like that is going to be game 2 to Rebobson.
Yeah, Warpath here will clear everything up, and that'll be 2-0 in the series. What decks have we got left, Orion, from both players?
So, with the bans that have been put through, it looks like ASDF still has a Control Priest favouring the Mind Blast package to be played.
Obviously, as well as the 2 decks, because he hasn't won with them, and this is Conquest.
Yes, indeed. And from Rebobson, it looks like what is now going to come out is
Spiteful Druid.
Spiteful Druid. The old meta favourite.
Yeah, the nerfs which didn't quite hit hard enough.
Indeed. Definitely managed to take the deck down a peg, which is sometimes is just a valid concern of nerfs. It's not, from a developer perspective, you don't always want to try to just completely eliminate a deck from the meta. Sometimes you just want to try to bring it down a little bit from a position where it was totally dominant to something that's a little bit less
control
dominant.
mage here. Interesting. I do think, though, it's quite likely that the reason the nerfs were somewhat minor were that they're just going to print more bad 10-drops in the next set, which is a pretty big nerf, as we saw that it really only gathered steam and got as good as it did when the pool of 10-drops shrunk so much. Here we go with Rebobson having the 2 most significant cards in the matchup, Keleseth and Spiteful, already in his hand. We've got a little bit of a clunky hand from ASDF.
Yeah, no 1-drop play from Rebobson, but that's going to be the only respite that ASDF gets this game.
And here you see why people have started opting for the Novice Engineer instead of the Raven Familiar. It's probably not going to get him a draw this turn, because he doesn't run he doesn't run a 10-drop spell.
He has no 10-drops, and the only cards in Rebobson's deck are 10-drops. So that is just a 2/2 for 2.
Nerubian Unraveler, very interesting tech card from Rebobson. It was very popular pre-rotation in decks like this. Haven't seen it as much post-rotation, but you can see how in this matchup it would be quite significant, making
that is going to
all of the clears just harder to come out, harder to combine with other stuff.
Yeah, excellent lead up to the turn 7 of the Spiteful Summoner as well, because either they have to burn a card trying to get rid of the Nerubian Unraveler, which then clears some removal out of the hand to protect whatever comes off the Spiteful, or it just becomes the case that the Nerubian Unraveler stays in play, which means that the clear for whatever comes off the Spiteful is made that much harder. So
I would say it's quite likely here that we see this come down in rush form to deal with the 1/2, then get the trade on the 2/1.
Pretty clean trade here from Rebobson.
The 1 damage.
Okay.
Interesting. I think that he's just trying to set up for Fungal Mancer in the best way possible.
Does make sense.
And then going to coin Spiteful. That sounds like a pretty terrifying couple of turns.
Yeah.
Old and Bitter just said in the chat, dang, this is going to be rough. I can only agree with that. This is a little bit hard.
Yeah, ASDF really just not having the kind of early game tempo plays with these kind of control mage decks. You really want to try to control.
That pink face there was interesting. We did have that was Folly, which is the oops emote from Medivh, which I do agree, but I'm not sure exactly what more ASDF could have done. His hand has just not been kind. There are a lot of players that have been cutting Alana recently because it is just so hard to get it down and replacing it with things like Syndragosa, which we saw before is in ASDF's deck, the Lich King, because you want cheaper stuff. The 9 mana is just so hard to play, and we can see here it's just going to clog up his hand. He's never going to get a chance to play it. and it's just a wasted spot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you predicted, the coin into Spiteful. Tyrannus, about the best hit that you can possibly hope for.
Although he picks up the perfect answer with the Voodoo Doll.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's targeted by spells or hero powers.
Minions are neither of those things.
It perfectly. We do have the Doomsayer coming down. It's not going to survive. We do see both the Spellbreaker in hand and the 8 damage on board.
Yeah, he's going to act basically like a pseudo Ice Barrier here, just soaking up that 8 points of health. Or a pseudo nothing. when Rebobson handily...
pseudo 0-7.
Spell breaks it up. Now, ASDF does have a couple of tools in hand to try to survive for a couple of turns. I could see potentially a Arcane Artificer into Flame Strike on this following turn is going to be able to clear the board and gain some health back.
So Furious Asdfghjkl in hand means that as soon as he can get to a point where the board's somewhat stable, he can get a big taunt down. I have never played Toki. Does it have taunt? No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
That doesn't help.
That doesn't help a lot at all. Unfortunately, the fact of the matter is that with Kellerseth coming down on turn 2 from Rebobson, he's now starting to see minions from his deck, which are almost exclusively
buffed.
Yeah, buffed up, which means that basically...
There's only 2 minions left that don't have the buff.
Right, which means that basically every turn, Rebobson is able to put just a must-deal-with amount of pressure on the board that ASDF is really going to be struggling to keep up, even with the number of sweepers that he has in hand. He's got a couple of turns where he can Blizzard to try to stall things out.
But once again, the Nerubian Unraveler here, the really heads-up tech play, makes it so much harder to actually do that. Because now, your Blizzard is 8. You can't fit in much around it. Goes for the Toki, pray that something good happens.
Well, we got patches. You are not in charge in this metagame, my friends.
It would be somewhat more useful if it was a Stone Tusk Boar, but of course...
I mean, I think that was the right turn to run the Toki out. He's not immediately dead on board, even with, I believe, a...
Fungalmancer would be... Or Leroy would be probably the most damage that he could get out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, especially with the follow-up of the Voodoo Doll that is likely going to kill off the Unraveler there.
He's also played both of his Spellbreakers, so he knows that there's no more silences left in the deck. So something like running this Voodoo Doll out just naked is a little bit better, because he knows that it's not going to actually just be silenced off and just be a 3-mana 1/1, which... I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty bad to me.
Yeah, not the greatest thing in the world. Opts just trying to get a couple of damage on the Saranite Chain Gang, looking to perhaps set up that Blizzard for the following turns.
The Grand Archivist is coming out here. The thing with Grand Archivist is obviously it can target your own face or your own minions, but you kind of don't care because you can just see how powerful here getting a 5/5 and drawing 5 cards is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Rebobson here mainly just cares about trying to restock the hand, pile the pressure back on so that every turn he can keep presenting a board.
Oh, the best possible target. And this game is long over. Malfurion there ensures that he can get the charge. We also have Druid of the Claw there. There's not much he can do. He is just going to go for the clear because this isn't guaranteed to be lethal.
Yeah.
But we can see this is over. This is a 3-0. And this whole series was over in half an hour, which is a lot quicker than I was anticipating.
Yeah, this was some dominant games by Rebobson. Look, best of luck work to ASDF. We saw that there were a couple of opportunities there where if maybe some of the luck had gone his way, he might have been able to turn things around.
I think at the end of the day, the decks just didn't match up particularly well.
No.
The first matchup we saw was Miracle Rogue against Control Mage. That's always going to be favored for the Miracle Rogue.
Yeah, 100%.
It's designed to take down those slower control decks. The second matchup was a Quest Warrior face-off.
Yep.
We saw that there's a couple of tech choices in there. The Harrison instead of the Scourgelord Garrosh, that made a big difference. And then finally, that Spiteful Druid just had too much pressure. I think that that's the most even matchup we saw and gave ASDF the best chance. But Rebobson just drew perfectly, and there's not much you can do against that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
for everyone in the chat, that was the EU Grand Final. So we do have our EU Listener League final winner. That is Rebobson, who actually played in both the NA and the EU brackets. Was about 2 spots off from qualifying for the top 8 for NA as well. So has done really well. Chose to do EU because it is 1 a.m. in the Netherlands where he is and didn't want to go through 3 matches, just preferred to play the one, get the victory. Well done to Rebobson.
Makes sense. Congratulations, Rebobson. Well played, hard fought, and also congratulations to the runner-up, ASDF. You gave it a good shot, mate.
What we're going to do here is I am going to black out Hearthstone briefly, and then I'm going to switch servers, and we're going to jump across to NA, because all the rest of the matches today are going to be on NA instead of Europe. So we will quickly log on, and we might try and spectate a match here.
That sounds like an excellent plan.
Let me have a look who is playing and who is on my friends list. So if we just jump into the bracket. If it'll load, which is always questionable. So Rebobson 3-0 over ASDF for the first match. It doesn't look like any of our quarterfinals have been finished. In NA, our quarterfinals were the first match was Jim Grits against Calum CV. Jim Grits came out as our first qualifier from the NA bracket. Going throughout the Swiss period, he went 8-2. He was one of our 2 players on 8 wins. The other was Mark Shire, who is in our second semi-final against Ryzen. Then the third is Nicolius against Schwal, and then Woodford against Diego Centric. We're going to jump into a game here. I'm going to see if we can spectate Jim Grits and Calum, but I'm not sure if they're on my friends lists. Give me a second. And we'll actually put Hearthstone in a normal resolution. Jim Grits, here we go. We're going to jump in and spectate him. And he is against Calum, who's also on my friends list. So beautiful. We can jump into that. I can minimize us. We're in the other corner.
Let's shrink this back down again.
Yeah. So
it seems like we've got Elemental Shaman facing off against Spiteful Druid.
There we go. All right. So this is our semi-final between our first qualifier from the first round. That is Jim Grits, and our 8th qualifier, which is Calum. Calum did occupy the first place position in the NA bracket for quite a while. About 3 weeks he was in first place and was undefeated. Then the nerfs came and he started memeing around a little bit and dropped quite a few games, but still managed to make it in by the skin of his teeth. Does look like it is... let me get some deck lists up so we can have a look at this.
Yeah, as I was saying before, it does look like Elemental Shaman from
Even
Calum.
Shaman.
Even Shaman, indeed. Yeah, from Calum against
so Calum's lineup was Even Warlock, Even Shaman, Token Druid, and Quest Warrior.
Really favouring the game there.
And Jim Grits brought Cube Warlock, Odd Pally, Spiteful Druid, and Odd Rogue. So this is his Spiteful Druid against the Even Shaman from Calum.
Yep. Looks like Calum is off to a pretty good start. Jim Grits has
it's fairly even at this point. We do quite obviously have the Kelesef buff for Jim Grits, which is always good.
It seems like that has been kind of one of the only things that has gone right for him in this game. There's been somewhat of a low impact hand here with just a couple of Fireflies, a Direwolf, and a Crypt Lord.
The ultimate infestation is going to be good. He's obviously going to save the coin so that he can coin that out on turn 9, refill his hand. You can see that both players are running fairly low on cards. If I just have a look at the deck list, I would assume that Calum is probably running Hagatha, which is also his draw mechanic there as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because you just need something.
Earth and Might onto the Flame Elemental is going to mean a extra Alakir in hand for Calum.
And boy, does a golden Alakir look nice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You didn't have an Elemental played that turn, so that is going to turn off Calamos for next turn. I would say that it's likely that we see one of the Alakirs come down. Logically, you'd probably have Calum play the one that is starting in his deck, so that it keeps Jim Grits guessing as to what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Spellbreaker off the top here is going to help kind of bring down that pressure a little bit and allow Jim Grits to trade off. Starting to regain some of the tempo that he was lacking a little bit earlier. Next turn is, of course, going to be able to go for the coin ultimate infestation, and from there he should be off to the races.
He is certainly ahead on board here. The Alakir is going to be significant because it does allow him to clear off everything apart from that Spellbreaker, which is nice. Also, could have chosen to just clear off the Spellbreaker if he thought that was more worthy. I think this is probably the better play. So from Jim Grits, let's see. His Spiteful Druid is looking fairly standard. Double Cobalt, Scalebane, double Fungalmancer, one Harrison Jones, one Leroy Jenkins, two Primordial Drake, and a Lich King. So it's quite a heavy run deck.
Yeah.
Heavier than some of the other ones. Whereas
really focusing towards the top end there. With that choice, looks like you're going to be starting to pay off now that we have reached the later stages of the game.
Whereas if we look at Calum on the other hand, we do have the Hagatha, which is going to help him get a little bit more draw if he can get that in his hand. Other interesting picks, obviously we've got in hand, we've got the Calamos, we've got a Lich King, we've got double Sea Giant, double Fire Plume Phoenix, which is becoming more core. Only runs one Vicious Scale Hide in his Corpse Taker package, because obviously the life steal is not that important.
Yeah.
Apart from that, it seems fairly standard, nothing too surprising. The Calamos here looks pretty good, but none of the options totally deal with anything. The Invocation for Air is his standard, but doesn't actually clear anything here.
Yeah, I can see going for the Invocation of Earth. Yeah,
I like that a lot.
Just get the pressure up, especially with the Flame Tongue Totem in hand. It's going to enable Calum to try to help clear away some of the board.
Obviously, we've got quite a nice follow-up here from the Primordial Drake. Trade in the Spellbreaker, clear the board, still have a 5/3 on board. You've got Hero Power as well, but that seems really good. And obviously with the Keleseth buff on the Primordial Drake, that makes it even tastier.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like Calum had to sort of maintain some pressure through those early turns of the game where Jim Grits had run out of steam a little bit, but now that the ultimate infestations have started to flow, looks like Jim Grits is in a much more dominant position.
Once we have finished this game, we will get an update from them just on the score, because obviously we've only just tuned into this match, so we're not sure of the overall game score. We'll get an idea of their bans, so that we can get a little bit of a better idea.
Yeah. 2 shots to face here, leaving Calamos on board from Jim Grits. Opting, looks like, just to try to set up lethal as quickly as he can. Take those opportunities. That is going to leave a pretty nice turn here from Calum, where he gets to play the Alakir, the second Alakir, alongside with the Flame Tongue Totem to enable a full clear of the board.
I would say that this 5 damage is probably going face here. I don't see the benefit in trading away that unless he thinks that there is an ultimate infestation in hand and that it will be popped next turn, which does seem unlikely because it will mean that there is overdraws from Jim Grits. Obviously, he's already played one, so that makes it even less likely that it will be played. I think that it is correct to hit face here. We'll see what he thinks, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it seems like a real point of contention here because enabling the clear of the board does mean that your Flame Tongue is more likely to survive, which means that the follow-up play of Corpse Taker becomes a little bit better.
Hopefully, and obviously we're not sure about this, we only saw half the game. There we go, as I expected. Hopefully the Corpse Taker still does have Lifesteal, because that will be very important. We have seen the Alakir drawn, so it won't have Wind Fury, but the Lifesteal does seem very significant. The Druid of the Scythe, quite interestingly, doesn't maintain its buff when it is played. So it will only be 4 attack, won't be enough.
Looking for a way to set up lethal.
I actually think that Druid of the Scythe into attack form and hero power will mean that he has exact lethal with Leroy. Let's see if he spots it. Actually, it will be 1 damage over because of the Keleseth buff on Leroy.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That is the line.
That. Otherwise, yeah, nothing else will actually get him exact lethal. That's the only path. And he looks like he's going to miss it here. But it will allow him to have a full clear. He'll get the 2, probably the Poisonous Spiders, I would say. And then he's able to... Oh, no, he's going for the Scarabs.
Going for the Scarabs.
I think Poisonous there was probably more correct.
Yeah, I think he's probably looking just to set up for the Fungal Mancer on the next turn.
Unfortunate to miss lethal there. Corpse Taker probably coming down. Let's see if it still has the Lifesteal. Yes, it does. That is very significant. Probably not going to be enough to get Caleb out unless he draws his Haggath up pretty soon to get some draws happening. I would expect to probably see again coming down as well on the other side of the Flame Tongue. Get as big of a board happening as possible. And there's no, apart from the Hero Power, there's not really a super clean way to clear off this Corpse Taker. And obviously, and heal Caleb for 10.
Yeah.
Or there is the option of Fungalmancer buffing up.
Yeah, so once he plays the Fungalmancer and is able to trade the Corpse Taker, Caleb is going to go to 13, which means he's going to be
out of range at least this turn.
3 off lethal. But that would enable him to also kill the Flame Tongue Totem.
The other option would
keep the Scarab on the board.
Scythe in attack form. That puts him up to 13. He's got 3 attack from the Hero Power, puts him down to 10. 2 damage from the Scarabs, 7 damage from Lyra. That will put him on 1. That looks like the most damage that he can do this turn. Looks like he's going to go for killing off the Gen, going very conservative, not going to set him to 1. Obviously, we had the Miss Lethal. That has Rush, not Charge. Jim Grits.
Rush is not Charge, my friend. Yeah, Jim Grits maintaining a pretty consistent strategy here of recognizing that Caleb is low on resources, that he's happy to leave him with a couple of things on board, even happy to maybe let him have some favorable trades, because he knows that if he can keep piling the pressure on, eventually it's just going to be too much to let up.
And this is just lethal here.
Yeah, I'll be very surprised.
There's almost no way that Jim Grits misses lethal here. I mean, it's possible.
We saw it once
but
before.
He'd have to try really hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that we probably just see trade here. Obviously, he's got the Leroy in hand. He's got the UI in hand
to make it happen. Let's see which one goes for the flashiest play.
Leroy. I think UI is the correct play there. A little bit more showy. Yeah. Let's get an update on this game from the players. What's the game score? What were the bans? Let's get a little bit of an update before they jump into the next one. Obviously, it is hard jumping in halfway through as we started off.
Alrighty.
Okay, so we had a Druid band and a Warlock band. I believe that was an even Warlock or a Q block. 2-1 in Jim Grits' favour. So that's not bad.
Yep. Jim Grits off to a pretty respectable start here.
Try and get a bit of an update so we can predict this a little bit better. Obviously, that is what we're going to do. One with Paladin and Druid, he won with Warrior. Excellent.
Alrighty. So Q block from Ubiquitous's Q block from Jim Grits was banned off. And then it would seem...
Yeah, so if I just grab... we can have a look here. So Caleb had his Token Druid band, so was left with even Warlock, even Shaman, and Quest Warrior. He has one with his Quest Warrior, I think Jim Grits said. Yes, so he has the even Shaman that we just saw that match, as well as the even Warlock left.
Yeah.
For Jim Grits, he brought Warlock, Pally, Druid, Odd Paladin, Druid, and Odd Rogue. That's quite an aggressive lineup.
Yep.
He had his Warlock band, so his Q Warlock. So was left with Odd Paladin, Spiteful Druid, and Odd Rogue. He's one with Paladin and Druid.
So it looks like we're going to see Odd Rogue this matchup.
Yep. Against the Even Shaman coming back. I think this is quite an interesting matchup. I'm not sure on the stats of it, but we might have a quick look. This
should be an interesting matchup to watch play out. Both decks are really trying to maintain early control of the board, play some impactful minions.
The Diamol seems quite good for Jim Grits there, and obviously the Primal Fin Totem is the kind of thing that Caleb wants.
Yeah, both quite fair decks as well. Just looking to sort of maintain, control of the board, use the minions to make good trades, get those advantages. So I'm excited to see this game play out. Should be interesting to see how it goes.
Let's have a quick look at this matchup on Vicious Syndicate and see what they say it is like, because I have not played much of these decks at all.
So Kalen's throwing away a Hex there, and unfortunately drawing the Gen Grandmain. Jim Grits throwing away the Scalebane and getting rewarded with an SI agent. That will be a nice play early in the curve, and Scalebane is back. So, this looks like a pretty neat curve out for Jim Grits. Diamol on 1, Dagger up on 2, and then following into something to play on 3 into a South Sea and an SI agent on 4. Kalen going to be able to Hero Power on 1, as is the standard play, and then have a couple of options between the Scale Hide and the Primal Fin Totem to play on turn 2. So we'll see how the matchup plays out, and it should be interesting going forward. All right, Firefly from Jim Grits.
Okay, so this says that the Odd Rogue is very slightly favoured.
All right.
But only slightly.
What do you think the reasoning behind that could be?
I think that the Shaman really needs the board in order to win.
Makes sense.
And kind of for that reason has to play this matchup very defensively, because the Rogue will just kind of splash on the board, hit face, and then just kind of burst them down. Whereas the Shaman really needs to then go on the defensive and defend itself. I think it's a big shame for Kalen here that he's actually drawn the Vicious Scale Hide, because he would have wanted that to come out with the Corpse Takers, get some lifesteal on those.
Yeah.
I would say that it's quite likely that we see a Coin Fireplume Phoenix here.
Yeah.
Because then we can also see him pop out with the whatever that card is called, Earthen Might
on the next turn.
And that gives him the draw, and he can partner that with something like the Vicious Scale Hide. It just seems quite solid.
Yeah, makes sense.
Interesting to see what happens here.
Yeah, I would expect just a Dagger up from Jim Grits here, but he's hovering over the Firefly, looking like he might want to try to develop the board a little bit. Probably wants to keep one of them in hand to activate the SI agent next turn.
I think there's reasoning to both. I think, as we said before, the Shaman really needs the board, so putting extra minions on the board is quite solid.
Yeah.
Gives him a little bit more ability to stop Kalen from seizing the board.
Yeah.
Obviously, if Jim Grits wins this match, then it's all over Red Rover.
Yeah, those daggers, though, also going to do just a very effective job of helping Jim Grits maintain the board. And I think that could be another reason why Odd Rogue is slightly favoured head in this matchup. And if we just think about the way the Hero's Powers matches up, most of the time the Totem has 2 health, 2 damage on the dagger means that they're going to be able to trade pretty easily 1-for-1.
As I said before, Fireplume Phoenix going down here fairly solidly. It is dealt with by the board. I'm not sure whether it actually will end up being dealt with by the board.
Yeah, I can see probably the SI
pushing
agent coming down here in some capacity, and then either trading off with the daggers or trading off with the mole. Daggers making the most sense to be able to maintain that minion on board and maintain the pressure. Means that there are 3 minions on board going into a Fungal Mancer turn, which is likely going to mean that Kalen is not able to clear 2 of them.
Isn't looking good for Kalen. The Saronite is a good pickup, but even that doesn't seem that good with the Fungal Mancer.
Kalen really needs to anticipate the Fungal Mancer here if he wanted to stay ahead, and unfortunately it looks like he's just going to deploy the 2-3.
There wasn't really a way that he could anticipate it.
Yeah, I mean, you can try to start clearing things away by maybe playing the second Fireplume Phoenix, but absent of the Fungal Mancer here, I agree that the Saronite was going to be the better play.
The only real way that he had to actually clear something up was going Scale Hide, Earthen Might, trade off into the SI, and then it shrunk the minions that could get buffed. They'd only be 3/4s, but still 2 3/4s against a board where your only minion is a 3/2. That seems pretty good still.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so Fungal Mancer coming down as I expected between the 2 1/2s, going to enable some very easy clears here. Maintain 2 3/2s on board. SI is going to hit face, and which means that also the following turn we can likely see Scalebane into Cold Blood from Jim Grits, both building the board, maintaining the pressure.
I would say that probably going to be Fireplume Hero Power here. There's just not much more that Kalen can do. Didn't really matter which one of the 3/2s you got. There's no healing in the deck. There's no elemental synergies in the deck.
Vicious Fledgling, interesting one off the top. I still likely expect the Cobalt play from
I think what's quite likely is that the Diamol will trade into the 3/3. He won't worry about the Spell Power Totem unless he's worried about Lightning Storm. Even then, I don't think he'll care. and then Scalebane Cold Blood on the 3/3.
Yeah. Unlikely
Hit phase.
probably to worry about Lightning Storm in an even deck, I would say. So.
Probably, yeah. That seems like a poor shout on my part.
I think the only real concern here that Jim Grits has is probably going to be the Invocation of Air from a Kalamos coming out.
But it's 6 mana, so also probably doesn't need to worry about that.
Not this turn, but I think that is probably something that Kalen's going to have to try to find in the following turns.
Also, we'll have the Hagatha option as well. Here, it's probably fairly likely that we see the Fire Elemental come down, kill that 7/3.
Yeah, it would have been really great for Kalem if that buff from the Scalebane could have just gone on that SI agent as well, and he could have gotten a nice 2-for-1, but looks like that the RNGesus has praised Jim Grits by distributing out the stats, making it for a more difficult clear for Kalem.
The other option that I can see, I'm not sure if I prefer it, is something like the Hex into Vicious Scalehide. Does allow him to heal for 1, get a 1/3 on board, but the 6/5 seems better. You're only killing the same minion. You're using more resources. The Hex can come out next turn. So I think that as bad as it feels, just saying, I'm going to take 12, I would say that it's likely that this is Fire Elemental, and then he just hopes that he can get something that will allow him to heal up.
Yeah. Things are not looking good for Jim Grits here.
No, for Kalem.
Things are looking excellent
for Jim Grits.
For Jim Grits. Yeah, Kalem.
I wouldn't actually mind a trade here and then play the other Cobalt Scalebane Dagger. It just makes a really imposing board.
Yeah, 2 8/5s. Both of them need to be cleared, both just for their own pressure and for the fact that if you keep them on board, they're going to keep charging up whatever.
And it leaves him with 10 damage on the board.
Yeah.
There's very little that he can do to go against that. Let's see what he draws. That is probably not enough.
No, I think the best...
If he had 1 more mana, then he could just heal out of range with the Hex into Scalehide into Direwolf.
Yeah.
That would put him on 11. Obviously, we see that that would possibly not be enough because he only needs 1 ping from the Kobold Apprentice to go face.
Yeah, I think the only way that Kalem moves to the next turn is pray for Taunt Totem, hit with a Hex, maybe charge it up with an Earthen Might. All right, it looks like this is going to be the game, which means Jim Grits is going to get through this quarterfinals round and advance to the semis.
Yeah, this is going well. Yeah, the Hex comes down, the Lifesteal comes down. Obviously, that just puts him up onto 10 with exactly 10 damage on board. That is exactly Thor for Jim Grits. That is a 3-1 series to Jim Grits. Kalem goes down, and our winner of the Swiss round continues on into the semi-finals. Let's have a look if we have any more results coming through. I'll quickly put up our bracket. All right, so we had Nicolius with a 3-1 victory over Schwal. That's the only other completed match so far. So I think we're going to jump into our second 8-2 Swiss player, which is Markshire, and his match against Ryzen. That's going to look like that is still going. Perfect. If we get into that, then we can get started.
Alrighty.
So it does look like we have Token Druid against Shadowwalk Shaman. Let me try and get...
Looks like an even Shaman there.
It does.
From Ryzen?
Yes, it is an even Shaman. Oh, and that's an expensive hand, but probably quite a good one.
Yeah.
Hagatha looking pretty reasonable there.
Yeah, even with the Hagatha, though, I'm not sure if Markshire... All right, fantastic. So game 4, Markshire is up 2-1.
And Markshire's got a reasonable hand. Obviously, that Savage Raw branching paths. I've played a fair bit of Token Druid, and I'm not sure it even takes a fair bit of Token Druid play to know that that is a buttload of damage.
Yeah, it looks like these Treants are
Also going to summon Treants.
With Soul of the Forest, meaning that Ritson is going to have a very hard time clearing off this turn.
Alaki is pretty nice. We can see that, clear off one of them, and then get rid of the initial bodies of one of those Treants, put up another taunt in the way.
Yeah, I think that the Hagatha play there would have definitely been a mistake. Clears is something that the Token Druid deck can work through with Soul of the Forest, but taunts does actually mean that the bodies get soaked up.
Yeah, and then those clears are going to be significant next turn because he's able to do something like Hagatha or Kalamos, because he's obviously turned back on the elemental synergy by playing Alakir, and he's able to combo that with something like the Merkspark Eel in his hand to get rid of another one of those bodies. We can see UI come out there probably with the Arcane Tyrant as well. Gets through an additional one of those taunts. Obviously doesn't mean that the Savage Roar or the Branching Paths can come out this turn, but that's a pretty nice hand anyway. Lots of damage there.
Yeah. You can see there Markshire trading off the Treant that is not enchanted with the Soul of the Forest Path.
Just wants to make it as hard as possible to get this board cleared.
Yeah.
Because either the Kalamos clear or the Hagatha clear here will not actually kill anything by itself. Obviously, we see that he has the Merkspark Eel to combine with it, so he's able to kill the 5/5. That'll still leave a 4/2 and 2 2/2s on board. That's 3 bodies. That itself is 8 damage from Savage Roar, 8 damage from Branching Paths. That sounds like more than 15 to me.
Yeah.
It's a hard position for Ryzen here. I think that we could see the game just going to Markshire next turn. We'll see what he chooses to do. I would say that Hagatha seems the best because you also get the 5 health. And you may get Ancestral Healing as well off the Merkspark Eel, allowing you to give it Taunt, which should just protect you a little bit, not a huge amount.
Merkspark Eel coming down.
So that probably looks like we're seeing Kalamos.
Yeah, likely.
No, Hagatha.
So just a sequencing mistake.
Just a misplay. But that's all right. We all make misplays. This is just for fun. 4 1 and 2 2/2s. That is probably lethal. With Branching Paths for attack +1 twice, and then a Savage Roar as well. We see that coming out. We also have the Hero Power if he needs more damage. I don't think that he needs more damage.
No, I think
that is
probably going to be adequate.
Another series done. We sneak in for the last game of that one, and we can see our third semi-finalist for the NA bracket coming through. There's only one more game that hasn't been completed, and that is Woodford against Diego Centric.
So let's see if we can jump.
Let's see if we can just jump straight in.
Yep, we've got Diego Centric.
Diego Centric still going, which is handy for us because Wicked Good, our co-commentator, is not coming for another half hour. So we might have a little break between games in that instance if this is getting close to being finished. It doesn't look like this is particularly close to getting finished, so that is handy for us.
Excellent, no worries.
Well, will spectator mode stop being buggy? Yes.
There we are.
This seems like a very favoured matchup for Diego Centric.
Absolutely.
Shadowwalk Shaman against any reasonably slow deck just seems good.
Yep. Woodford's only 4 ticks on the quest, meaning that he's going to need to play. He can finish it off with the Phantom Militia in his hand if he takes an entire turn off to do so. But that is still going to be a couple more turns in the game.
So obviously games here have been completed, but so you have an idea of what they brought. Woodford had his Quest Warrior, which is playing now. He also had Shadowwalk Shaman. He had Burn Mage, Aggro Mage, Secret Mage. I don't know what you want to call it. People call it Tempo Mage. It's not Tempo Mage. It wins by turn 3. Turn 5, sorry. And Cube Warlock. And then we also have from Diego Centric, we had Control Mage, the Shadowwalk Shaman that he's playing right now, Token Druid, and Recruit Hunter, which I am a big fan of. I like big dinosaurs, and I like it when they hit my opponent in the face.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, double Phantom Militia from Woodford there is going to bring the quest up to 6, which means the following turn, being able to play out that Primordial Drake is going to complete it.
Diego Centric here is in a little bit of an awkward position. You can see him just Hero Power pass. This is somewhat symptomatic of Shadowwalk Shaman at some points, but it just doesn't draw the cards in their deck which actually do stuff.
Yeah.
So much of the deck is just kind of like survive.
Yeah,
and then you've got the
get to the late
insane
game.
combo, which just wins you games so often. There's a little bit of pressure coming down here. I could see a Volcano gives him a full clear, so the far side allowed him to draw through a little bit more, chuck down the Volcano, or even just a Hex on the 4/8 reduces the damage on board somewhat significantly. Sandbinder is a lovely pickup. Volcano first.
Lead into the Volcano, into the Sandbinder is good.
We can see that
he's
he's also
completed from Woodford though, so he is going to be able to play the Sulfuris next turn and
that's
start trying to apply the
probably
pressure.
not the card that he wanted there. I would assume by the fact that he was overloaded the turn before and he's overloaded this turn, he's probably not played Grumble. And that was probably the card that he was hoping to draw there. Not the Firefly, which seems somewhat insignificant. We can see that he is obviously playing the Keleseth version because there is the buff on the minion that he just drew. I'll give you a run through of what this deck list.
Yeah, so Woodford's starting to pile on the pressure there with the Sulfuris and the Die Insect hint. Healing Rain nicely soaks up all of that 12 damage, meaning that Diego Cedric can basically just spend his turn, hero powering, maybe throwing out a Firefly and passing.
There's a good chance he throws out both of them here. Just get some stuff on board, make it really hard for that fireball to hit face. Give you a quick run through of what this Shadowwalk Shaman looks like. It is much more of the board-centric version. So we've got cards like Double Firefly, Double Glacial Shard, Keleseth, Acolyte Pain, Gluttonous Ooze. He's got one Tolbear Stone Shaper, which obviously would give his Shadowwalk Taunt and Divine Shield, which is quite nice. One Primordial Drake instead of the Hagatha, because obviously that slot is often interchangeable. There's very few people who run both or neither. Usually you run one of them because otherwise you just die to those aggro decks, which you almost always do anyway.
Yeah, Woodford there winning the 2 out of 3. He really wanted to make sure that a 2 health minion survived the brawl so that he could slam it and then go for the face hit, which he managed to do.
Say another Healing Rain comes out here probably, again with the Manatide Totem. Geocentric isn't running Hemet, which has become really common in these decks because there's so many cards in your deck which just do nothing in the late game. Like that Manatide Totem. If that was a Grumble, he'd be so much happier, but it just wasn't. Saronite's good pickup. That's a card that he wants.
Yeah.
But this is a lot of pressure coming in. We can see that we've got the Blood Razor here coming down. That's going to allow him to get rid of one of the minions, give him a 50-50. I would have quite liked the Acolyte of Pain coming down there to get him an extra draw, but he's going to go for the Saronite instead. Doesn't win the 50-50, so doesn't get that damage to face, which he would have liked.
It's true. I think Woodford also here just looking for alternate ways to try to develop some board pressure, because obviously maintaining a little bit of board pressure means that he can use his minions to try to trade off against what Diego Cedric puts out, meaning that those Die Insect hits are going to go to the face.
Pride Drake seems like a reasonable draw here.
Yep.
It doesn't die to a rag shot by itself because it has 9 health thanks to the Keleseth buff.
Yep.
Which is handy.
Looks like Diego Centric is going to try to hit the Lightning Storm though, and then follow it up with a Saronite Chain Gang of his own. Wins a little bit of the die roll, managing to clear one of them away at least. Another brawl here from Woodford off the top is looking attractive, but now is going to be the turn that the Acolyte of Pain comes down with the Blood Razor tick, is going to enable Woodford to cycle through his deck a little bit more. Die Insect is going to go face.
It's a good pickup for him. A good hit for him. That's where he wants that to go.
No.
Primordial Drake could well come down here. Clears the board, keeps the Saronite alive. That seems fairly good.
Yeah, gives a body to soak up a potential Die Insect hit.
But there's a chance that it just is getting to the point where he just will need to Shadowwalk and pray. Because he'll need to heal from the mosquito dudes, whatever their name is.
The Life Drinkers.
Those ones.
Yeah. So the Die Insect hit last turn going face means that basically at any point in time there is a chance that button press could just spell game over for Diego Centric.
Yeah, on 8 health now, so with Warpath there, we can see that he's able to get 4 out, so he can turn this into a 50-50 to win the game. Brawl also going to do exactly the same. I think I would have preferred Warpath there, but that's just
Yeah,
me.
potentially maintaining Brawl for the
Is this game? It is. There we go. We are finished with our quarterfinals for NA. Congratulations to everyone involved. A quick rundown of what that means for our bracket when I can get it up.
Right.
That means that in our next round we have our top 4 qualifiers from the Swiss. Not much of a surprise there, I guess. We have Jim Grits with his 3-1 victory over Kalen. We have Markshire with his 3-1 victory over Ryzen. Nicolius with his 3-0 victory over Schwal. And then we have Woodford with a victory over Diego Centric. That may not be the end of the series, which I guess I wasn't even thinking of. But seeing as Diego Centric is logged off, I would say probably means that it is the end of that series. Unsure the score of that one. I will just get an update for you. What was the score? So once we've got those scores, then we will be able to jump into the next round. What we're going to see is that our first semi-final is going to be Jim Grits against... I'm just going through the bracket as we speak.
So it looks like Woodford took out a 3-1 victory against Diego Centric there with that final match of the Quest Warrior against the Shutterwalk Shaman sealing the deal.
So it will be Jim Grits against Nicolius for our first semi-final. Our second semi-final will have Markshire against Woodford, who we just saw in that last match. If I quickly fix up this. All right, let's let them know what we have. So we have Jim Grits, obviously our top qualifier from the Swiss round against Nicolius, who was our third placed qualifier from that, who had a 7-3 score. And then we also have Markshire, who is our second qualifier. It's going on that 8-2 as well as Jim Grits, and then Woodford, who was a 7-3 as well. Interestingly, Woodford did drop down very close to the bottom of the table in the first week, and then climbed his way up after that. To be very highly placed, coming fourth in the end. We're going to take a short break now, just while we wait for Wicked Good to come along, who's going to help join us for the semi-finals. So we're going to take maybe about a 10-minute, 15-minute break. So we'll be back after that. See you in a bit.